Hello everybody, and I want to welcome you to my shop. As you can see behind me today, I'm in my small shop, which if you watch my introduction video, you'll understand what this shop, kind of where this one, basically this is what started the large shop that I'm in today, where you see a lot of my videos. But it's Christmas Eve, and I thought no better thing to do on a Christmas Eve. Unfortunately, this year we don't have a lot of family here. The wife's in the house. She's baking cookies and making candies and stuff. So I figured, instead of sitting in front of the television watching football, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to introduce you to the car that's sitting behind me. I kind of alluded to it just a little bit in my introduction video that this is the car that started everything for me. So if you want, hey, let's get in the holiday spirit. Let's make sure that make sure your stockings are hung, and we might as well get into the character just a little bit. Get your stocking hat. And you might as well get your favorite sweater. Oh, and one more thing, while we're at it, get your favorite beverage, whether it's coffee, eggnog, wine, juice, whatever it is, grab it. And I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, whatever the case may be. And come along, and I'm going to introduce you to Blue. You're my boy, Blue. So come along. Okay, like I said, this is the very first car that I ever bought. This car is what started this whole hot rod craze, whatever the case may be. This is the car that started it all with me as a young kid. I bought this car 2 weeks before I turned 16. This car is a 1976 Chevy Nova. And unfortunately, I hate to admit the shape that it's sitting in at the moment, just given the fact that I had some engine issues. It had an oil leak, and the only way I could fix the oil leak was to pull the engine out of it. And as you can see, with the hole in the hood, this thing's got a tunnel ram, 2 4-barrels, and a street scoop that sticks out of the hood. I'll get into the reason why that stuff is on there later, but for the most part, I'm gonna uncover the old car, and please overlook all the dirt and dust, because it has been sitting in this garage for several months now in this shape. And a lot of that is due to all the work and all the cars that I have at my big shop. So here in just a minute, I'll grab the camera. Once I get this thing uncovered, you can kind of see, other than it being really, really dusty, you can pretty much see what the car is. But I'll grab the camera, I'll do a walk around, and I'll show you all the work that I've done to this car. I might put some pictures up as well of some of the work and some of the progression to get this car where it's at. So anyway, come along, and hopefully you enjoy, and we'll see you in just a bit. Okay, we may as well start right up here underneath the hood. As you can see, it was pretty clean. Overlook the dust on the subframe. It just needs to be cleaned up, but that frame is powder coated, and it will clean up pretty nice. All the control arms are all powder coated. I'll probably upgrade those to tubular. They do have polyurethane bushings. You can see I've already started moving some of the parts off. That's the new booster and master cylinder that I'm planning on putting on. I've got a DSC windshield wiper motor kit to put on it. I do have billet aluminum hood hinges that will go on it. But it's, for the most part, it's pretty clean underneath the hood. One of the things that I did do is this, since this car's been sitting in here, I've bought a ton of parts. The fan shroud is all custom handmade here. Stuff I've got that I've done. The battery tray is going to get reworked. I've got a billet battery tray. The overflow tank will get relocated. I've got a new one of those going in it. And we might as well move around. But for the most part, the car is pretty nice. I've let it sit here and I've neglected it. The interior, have done almost all of the work inside here. The only thing that I didn't do was the dash pad and the seat reupholster. I did do the carpet, the headliner, the door panels. The center console's all custom built. The dash, the little aluminum inserts that are in here. One of the things, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but this whole car is all put together with stainless steel Allen bolts. And all the front suspension, all the the fenders, everything's bolted together with that type of stuff. So, but the interior's in pretty good shape. I'm not going to change much. I am going to have to rework the gauges due to the fact that I do have a Dakota digital gauge system that will go in here. So the white face stuff is going to go away. At one time I had this thing polished out really nice, and it just doesn't stay very good. So I may do something different there, but street scoop, it's sitting over there covered up. The interior's pretty clean on the car. It's pretty nice. Centerline Combo Pros, that's back in the early 90s. This was kind of the look that I wanted back in the day. And that's part of the reasons why I haven't actually tore this thing back down to the bare nut and bolt, just because this is what I envisioned whenever I was 19, 20 years old. So moving on here to the back, you can see there's the custom panel work that I've done back here. I've actually narrowed this 6 inches. And I know the lighting's pretty poor, but I've got an amp and stuff that's sitting in here, which I need to finish up. I've got some speaker boxes that I'm going to be building custom fit to there. And when we look at the top of the hatch, there's more aluminum stripping and more panel work. I've done all the upholstery on these panels. These panels are actually recessed and inlaid in this PVC foam board before I actually put them in here. So pretty cool back in the day whenever I started doing a lot of this work. And as you can see, it's just dusty and dirty. So don't want to get too carried away because there's a lot of stuff. I do have a large parts shelf sitting over there that I'm going to put a lot of stuff on. I'll get the car up a little higher and we'll start changing out some parts, and I'll show you all the work that's been done underneath. So I'll see you in a bit. Okay, before I actually just jump in and get crazy with tearing stuff off the car, or even trying to figure out where I want to start first, here's the overflow shelf of this is another deal that's going to make this really, really tough, just given the fact that I've got so much stuff here that I've bought over the years. But this is where I talk about the addiction, and I kind of make a joke about a drug addiction would be a lot cheaper, but I do like my teeth. So if you're into hot rodding or street rodding or just into working on cars in general, you're going to understand where I'm coming from. So it's going to keep you broke, and you're not going to have money for anything else. So this is a shelf that I've been stuffing parts on this since I started taking this car apart. And one of the most significant pieces, one of the most significant parts that I'm going to change, and I don't know if you'll see it, but I'll pan this camera down just a little bit. But this, as I was saying earlier, this engine originally has a tunnel ram with 2 4-barrel carburetors, and it's old technology. This is one of the most significant pieces that I'm actually planning on running on this car. Now, this is a dual EFI Holley Sniper system, and I've kind of kicked around a couple of different ideas for the fuel injection system on this car, but for all intents, my plan is to run this up on the top of the shelf. I don't know if you saw it a minute ago, but I do have a Tanks Incorporated tank that will accept the in-tank pump. So I might actually start with disassembling some of the existing tank, which the tank that's in the car is brand spanking new. I even welded a sump system into it, but it does have a frame-mounted Holley blue pump. So that all the Holley line, or all the lines I want to replace. Here's my Dakota digital dash I was talking about. These are billet hood springs. I've got some cow tracks up here. Like I said, the parts list is just endless for what I want to do to this car. So I think I'll get set up and I'll figure out what I want to start working on, and I'm not too sure that I don't start trying to pull the fuel tank. I do have some work to the rear end. I may end up pulling the rear end out. The rear end I did not powder coat on this car, and I may go ahead and do it while I'm at it. I might even try to narrow it just a little bit. So I don't know. We'll see where this rabbit hole goes. So come along. Let's see what we can do. Okay, I've got this thing jacked up, got some stands underneath it, and I put a light back here at the back of the car, and I almost need to turn it off because it's showing how dirty this thing is. But as you can see, the underneath of the car was pretty clean at one point in time. This is the new fuel tank that I was talking about that's in here. For the most part, the leaf springs were powder coated back whenever I was doing this work originally, and the underneath of the car was painted pretty nice. I mean, it's painted as nice as the top. It's just filthy right now. The stainless steel exhaust system, that's a 3-inch stainless exhaust. It was all custom hand built that I done here in this shop, actually off jack stands. So this was done well before I started my big shop. You can see there's I've got a big old set of air shocks on here, which, you know, this is some old technology, and some of this stuff I want to change out and redo. There's stainless steel fuel lines. Most of the brake lines I'll leave because they're in pretty good shape, but there's some stainless steel fuel lines that I'm going to redo. The fuel system for sure will get redone if I do the fuel injection system on here. But you can see I've spent a lot of time underneath this car detailing. So like I said, I think I'm going to get the exhaust system out. It's got to come down anyway. It's going to have to get reworked because I do have a new set of headers for it. And I think for the most part, the fuel tank is the very first thing I'm going to pull out of this car. The fuel tank, the fuel lines, and the pump. So we'll be back. Okay, there lies the fuel system, and as you can see, it's kind of bittersweet pulling this out because I spent quite a bit of time putting this system together back whenever I first put this car together, or one of the times that I put it together. This car's been apart and together several times, but I did spend some time when I welded this sump in. We kind of blended this and smoothed it out and bodyworked that thing to make it look pretty nice. And then instead of buying fuel clamps, fuel hose clamps, I made all these. I hand bent. I made me a little pattern, and I hand bent every one of these aluminum clamps. And nowadays I can buy stuff, and so these will be some of the things that I upgrade on this system. So on the driver's side, if you noticed up underneath here, there was a line that was connected. This steel braided line was connected to the original fuel line. And on these cars, that fuel line actually comes in right there, and it went up and it went to the canister. There's a vacuum canister that sits in the front of these for emissions. And whenever I had the tunnel ram system on here, for the most part, I just use that line for my return. I will completely, with this fuel injection system, I'll run a totally different fuel system. So all of that will come out and be modified. So anyway, got a little bit more tear down. I did realize just a minute ago that I'm gonna have to pop the rear seat cushion out so I can get the braces, the bolts for the exhaust system, so I can pull it out. So that's up next. Okay, there's the exhaust system out from underneath it. As I was saying earlier, that was a really pretty exhaust system when I first welded that together. Put it underneath the car. It's gotten dirty over the years, but it's It's all TIG welded. It's just a little bit tarnished, off colored. But anyhow, it's out of the way. So for the most part, I got the fuel system out, and there's a few other things I want to unbolt, and then I'm not too sure I don't get some soapy water and start washing the underneath of this thing. So anyway, we'll see what's next. All right, so for the most part, I'm pretty much, it's getting a little bit later in the evening, and I think with it being Christmas Eve, I think I'm gonna go in the house and spend some time with the wife. And another thing that I wanted to do with this car is kind of share some of the stories about this car in my childhood. And I will do exactly that. And I'm gonna start with this scoop. This is a Mr. Gasket street scoop. And they originally come out with these butterflies being red. And there's a story behind that scoop, just like there's stories behind a lot of other stuff on this car. And part of me being able to do what I want to do is I want to share this with you. But I'll show you in this box. And what's so funny about this box, that's the original box that this scoop came out in. And that's what they look like from when you basically unbox them. That's what they look like. Now what's so funny about that is that box is probably from 1997 or 98 when I first bought this scoop. Now, the reason why I have this scoop is several years ago, I was, I don't know, 17, 18 years old, and I was driving a few towns away. This is back when me and my wife were dating. And I would go through a certain town, and every time I'd go through this town, there was a 69 Chevelle that had one of these sticking out of the hood. And I never forget the first day that I'm pulling through that town and that car rolled up behind me, because this car, it originally was maroon, had a 6-cylinder in it. I had some Keystone Classic wheels on it. It looked good and it looked the part, but it was not a hot rod. And I never forget looking in the rearview mirror and seeing those red butterflies flipping back and forth while that dude behind me was showing off what he had underneath the hood. From that day forward, I said, I'm gonna own one of those scoops. That's the story behind this scoop, and that's why it's on this car. It's another reason why I wanna let this car be what it is. I can pro tour this car, I can do a ton of stuff with this car, but this is a car that is attached to my childhood, and it's my first. So anyway, that's part of this journey. As I go along with this car, I'm going to take time out and I'm going to share some of this stuff just because I enjoy talking about it. There's another story that I'll share, I don't know, in a day or two about the car. And right before COVID hit, there was a cruise night here in town. So we'll get to that later. But I think for tonight, I'm gonna roll it up for tonight. And like I said, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and we'll be back out here tomorrow. I'll continue to pull stuff off the car, and we'll get it to a point where I can start putting stuff back on. So thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, it's Christmas Day, and I'm back in the shop. Like I said yesterday, we didn't have a lot of family come in. We have kids and grandkids that are in different states. We've actually got a kid in his wife. They are actually serving overseas. But we didn't have a lot of family coming in, so it's just me and the wife this year. We do have some festivities that we're gonna attend later on this afternoon, so I thought I might as well come out and kind of finish up with what I wanted to do today. Yesterday you saw that I pulled the fuel system out from underneath the car, got the exhaust system out. Today I'm gonna continue pulling parts up underneath the hood, stuff that I know for sure that's gonna come out from underneath the car, especially given the fact that some of this stuff I'm replacing. There's a couple of other decisions that I still need to make as to which components that I'm gonna replace under here. So there's some stuff that I wanna do here. So we're gonna keep going on and pulling parts off. And as I go, much like yesterday, I'm gonna share some stories about this car and kind of open up about how this thing got to be where it's at. So wanna wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and let's jump right into this thing. All right, so I've got me some tools laid out, and I went ahead and put a couple of blankets to kind of protect the paint. So between that and I went ahead and I've removed the booster and master cylinder, and I've got a couple other parts that I just had mocked up into place. I've got those out of the way. So I think the first thing I'm gonna do, as I said yesterday, I plan on trimming a lot of components out in black and blue versus a lot of chrome and aluminum. So I did buy a new MSD box and coil, and both of these components, and as well as the coil bracket, these are all going to be black. So I think I'm going to start by pulling this stuff off and get it out of the way, and then I'm going to bail off in the engine compartment and start pulling stuff off on the inside here. Also, I had to put me a sweater on because, or a long sleeve shirt, because my heater for some reason decided it doesn't want to work. And it's only about 58 degrees in the shop this morning. So anyway, I'm gonna pull this stuff off and we'll get after it. Okay, now that I've got everything underneath the hood somewhat ready to be cleaned up and go back together, I'm gonna wait, hopefully get a little bit warmer day to where I can open up the door, get some hot soapy water, and there's gonna be some stuff that I wanna wash up there. With the door open, I'll be able to squeegee that stuff out. It's a little bit chilly today. So now I think I'm gonna move on into the interior. And as I said, I've got a Dakota digital dash that's gonna go in here. So in order to make the install of that easier, I'm gonna pull the front seat, and more than likely I'm gonna drop the steering column, because I did say that I was gonna do something different with this lower shift collar. So I'm gonna get set up and we're gonna jump right on this, and we'll proceed with taking this thing apart. Okay, now that I got the seat pulled, and I had to run a vacuum cleaner over this carpet. This thing was just dirty. Anyway, I think the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop the steering column and get ready to pull the instrument cluster out so I can modify it for the Dakota Digital. So that's next. Okay, for the most part, I think I've got enough stuff pulled off of the car, and I've got a good starting point to where I can do some cleanup and I can actually start putting new pieces back on. And I'll get to that in a later episode, but I kind of want to conclude this video. But before I do, I want to share one more story, and it's about this car and my wife. I kind of mentioned yesterday that I had this car back whenever her and I were dating, and this was probably back in the late 80s, mid to late 80s. And here in the town that we live in, when we were dating, it was pretty much a Friday and Saturday night ritual that everybody cruised Main Street, and we were no exception. We were out, we were cruising town, we were having a good time, and that's kind of what we did on a Friday and Saturday night. So A couple of years ago, before COVID got really bad, some people here in town, they decided that they were going to have a cruise night. And of course, the car was running back then, and the wife and I, we jumped in the car and we were cruising town, and it kind of reminded us of the good old days. There was tons of people in town. There were people lining the streets, watching the cars, and it was a good time. We had a really good time. It was at that moment that I realized that the significance in that event, where it was 30 plus years later, same car, the same woman, and the same road. And that's what makes this so cool, because of the memories that we share together. So I want to close with saying that without her support, I'm truly a blessed person. And without her supporting me, there's no way in the world that I'd be able to do the fun stuff that I get to do with cars. Because trust me, this automotive thing for me, sometimes I don't know when to shut it off. And I can't thank that woman enough for putting up with me this next year, 2024. It'll be 35 years of marriage, and I can't thank her enough. So I'm going to leave that story, and I want to, as usual, I want to thank you guys for tuning into this video. And once again, I want to wish everyone from Steve's Speed Shop, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you on the next one. Yeah. All right, so I've already had